welcome back to my channel. This is Tita Lavinia of Titas of Pageantry, and for this episode, we're going to make HIMAY, and we're going to discuss my top 10 best in national costume from the Binibining Pilipinas 2022 National Costume Show. So please make sure you stick around. Please subscribe to the channel as well as hit that bell notification button for your weekly pageant. Hey guys, how have you been doing? It's nice to be back, and it's nice to be able to do this. This is my comfort zone. I only had to ask for like 2 days for the HD photos to come in, for more of these chop videos to come in, just so I could make my editing life easier. But joining me in this episode is Bowie. He's going to be judging my choices. He's going to be judging our life choices as well. So let's allow him a little bit of airtime in this episode. So yes, last Saturday, I hope that you got the chance to watch my episode. I took you to the Binibining Pilipinas National Costume Show, and at that event, there were other fashion shows that happened. There was a fashion show for Shein as well as Jag, something that we've all been waiting for. And then there were also performances by P-pop groups such as Alamat as well as Fourth Impact. So it was a jam-packed theater, and it was really nice to get to mingle with pageant fans, Filipino pageant fans who have all converged at the Kia Upon theater. Entering the theater, I mean, very early on, you could just feel like this is going to be a vibrant show. This was going to be an energetic show, and even the lights, it seemed really glossy, it seemed minimalist, and it kind of gives you a glimpse of how they might design the set for the finals. And yeah, I thought that it was a really good use of space. So we were just really happy that it seemed that funding was poured into the production. Like I said, it did seem really glossy, and I think it's safe to say that this year is the most dazzling of the national costume shows. Like back in the day, it was just all about cat. And in the following years, there would be one or two really catchy national costumes. But this year, out of the 40 candidates, you could just count by one hand how many girls went for the traditional Filipiniana. The rest went for the kill. They went for the full cultural experience. So for those of you who have been asking or raising your eyebrows why we have mythical creatures, flora and fauna, this is because it encompasses everything that is identified with the Philippines. I mean, they're not really very strict with the rules as long as it has some connection to the Philippines. That's why this year we had a lot of religious icons, religious references, which I will be talking more about. Of course, this is my channel. Of course, it's a ranty episode, but I'm not just going to give you a list. I'm going to also give you just some common trends that were seen at the National Costume Show, which was really dazzling. So first category, we have the everyday Filipino, and again, she has proven herself to be an amazing opener because every time she opens the show, she sets the mood, and she did not disappoint this time. I have Stacy Gabriel with her bedazzled taho costume. I thought that it was a really good nod to like everyday Filipino. And of course, we also have Jessica McEwen with her sandok costume. I think that this is also a depiction of everyday Filipino life, although very subtle at that. Filipiniana, of course, was present at the National Costume Show. Maybe it did not dominate unlike the other years. And we had Filipiniana, which is more on the traditional side because, again, a lot of the other candidates really went all out. And for this, we had Shasha Mendoza. She was in a Chico Estiva, if I'm not mistaken. Ana Valencia, of course, was in a really pretty blue Louis Pangilinan. And Jasmine Omay, again, looked like a fairy princess in her lilac terno. The rainbow is also a common theme in this year's national costume presentation. I think that this is also a really good nod to looking for life, looking for color after that sad pandemic. Although it's still with us now, I'm looking at 2020 and 2021, really, really bad years. But anyway, leading this category, we have the beautiful Joanna Day, which I really want to give a shout out to because her face definitely is undeniable. We also had the amazing construction of Joanna Ricci Alahar's costume. So it was vibrant, it had lots of figures, it was fully embellished. And of course, we had the Peria or the carnival inspired costume by Nicole Borromeo. But I guess my favorite from this category is just the intricate and the clean execution of the garment that was worn by Josh Di Maculangan. Yes, I know that you're hearing the tricycles. Again, I am filming this very early in the morning in the hopes that I can deliver this to you late in the afternoon or maybe in the afternoon. Of course, this is much debated on. I think we've had a lot of talks about this, but I guess we should just let it go and appreciate the artistry that was presented by the groups who went for the religious icons. So for me, leading the pack, we have Kaya Moreno. She was in this beautifully beaded ensemble, and I think that this is like a more accurate depiction of the Lady of Peña Francia. We also had Anne de Mesa, who I thought got the Santo colors right, or at least the shade. It was crimson and then that really vibrant gold, which she was able to present, and it was glittering on stage, really very pretty. And of course, who could forget the much talked about costume of Gabi Bashana, which I will be talking about more later on. So alam nyo na, kasama na siya sa listahan. And of course, when you talk about the Philippines, you can't discard our rich flora and fauna. And we have Jane Henobisa. I remember her fern costume, although it seemed really simple and it seemed really green and brown. I thought that it was really punchy. And I remember the crowd responding well when she lifted the staghorn ferns at the back. Also, Elda Asnar had a very streamlined costume, but the iconic Waling Waling, you cannot miss it with Elda's costume. But perhaps one of my favorites, which of course I will be talking more about, is Quezon City's Patricia Gold's Mariposa costume. I mean, that was couture served to us hot, piping hot. Now, we also had a lot of plus ones. I mean, the costumes nowadays, you don't just have to wear it, you can drag it, you can detach from it even. And we saw a lot of this, and that's why this is, I think, the most exciting national costume show we've seen so far. So leading the pack, we have Karen Lori, who not only brought the house, she brought the farm with her binukot costume. Who could forget Harley Nicole Budol with her 16 feet tall? I don't know if that's accurate, but I think I read it somewhere that the Gigantes costume is traditionally 16 feet tall. Then one of my favorites also, Patricia Tan. I thought that she brought the saloon, she brought the rodeo to us. I think my only thing with her costume was just that it didn't look sturdy. It just seemed a little flimsy, but the visual presentation was really very good. And Nico Bernardo also carried along a floral arrangement that every plantita would love. And I also want to give a special shout out to Lala Vinson. I thought that her presentation, although her costume wasn't the grandest, it wasn't large in scale, it really wasn't as flashy, but I think that she really won me over with how she presented her national costume. She was really committed. She had graceful movements, but you could really see strength in the way she moved and the intensity with her eyes. So that was a really good presentation. But do indulge me because growing up in the 80s and the 90s, one of my favorites were these Japanese shows who would make it to Philippine TV. And one of my favorites is Scheider. So when I saw the national costumes of Chelsea Fernandez as well as Natasha Jung, it really reminded me of Ida, as in time space warp ngayon din, Ida. And I don't know, it gave me nostalgia. It really brought joy. I know on to my top 10 favorites. So, number 10 for me, I'm going to start with the opener herself. She is, of course, Stacy Gabriel. Now, her costume for me is just answered pageant prayer. I've been wanting for the taho man to be represented. I've been wanting for this iconic Filipino breakfast to have more of a representation. And I'm so happy that they bedazzled the taho containers. This was done by Urjan de la Serna. It was just beautifully constructed. It's not too big, it's not too flashy, but based on the photos that I was able to gather and the videos that I also got hold of, it just seemed that so much love and effort was put into bedazzling the whole ensemble. My next pick is Jash de Macolangan, and she, of course, is depicting the colorful Ibong Adarna and this mythical bird rising from the ashes of Mount Mayon. I know that's like an alternate story, but it's not really as far fetched because this one, they're calling this Turismo de Albay. Now, the colorful ensemble was designed by Stephen Alvarado, and according to the write-up, the colorful silhouette emblems, feathers, gems, and tassels decorated in the entire costume pays tribute to the perceptibly shining province as a tourism gem and a gender welcoming place which offers innumerable activities for leisure, fun, relaxation, and travel. As colorful as the rainbow is, the best definition of the people coming from Albay in different forms, shape, color, age, and sexuality. That's why their famous slogan is very popular in the entire country that says, indulge yourself in warm Albay. So apart from being a visual feast for the eyes, I think that the meaning of Jash de Maculangan's costume is on a more literal sense because it's a visual representation, of course, of the rainbow flag and the group that this represents. I think that Jash was also very elegant in her presentation and the movements were really very clean. So I think that she did more than a good job. She did a great representation of Albay this time. My next pick is, of course, the beautiful and statuesque Ana Valencia. Now, she was in a sky blue Filipiniana creation by Louis Pangilinan. And this is, of course, a traje de mestiza at its most traditional form. And what I really like about this costume was that it was subtle, it was traditional, and when a lot of people are going out of the box, you become a rare commodity in something that looks more traditionally Filipino. So I'm actually quite glad that she didn't veer away from this, but I'm also happy that she did not go the princess route, meaning to say her designer, Mr. Louis Pangilinan, did not put her in a Filipiniana that looked more like a ball gown and really capitalized on her height, really capitalized on her body. So everything was just so linear with her. So if you also put on a pointy headdress, I mean, she'd look, what, like 6'5", almost 7 feet tall, probably, if you count all of the inches that were added. My next pick is Yana Adwana. She was in a Marianang Makiling costume that was made by Jomar Peralta. Now, again, the bodysuit, the heavily beaded bodysuit with woven elements and lots of crystals in shades of green, not very far from the greens that you see here. I think that these are all amazing shades of green for Yana. If you get closer shots of the make of this costume, it's really very intricate. It looks like a puzzle piece and it makes your eyes look and wonder at different parts of the costume. Maybe they went a little overboard with the whole presentation with the deer, because I honestly, please correct me, I don't know if that's common in that part of Laguna. I guess because I'm just thinking maybe she could have had added like a beast of burden. I think that the deer part, however adorable they were, they look more like a Christmas decoration. But if it were just Yana in her Mariang Makiling presentation, I thought that, you know, she looked really glowing and beautiful. And even with where I was seated, could just really see her glow. She had that glow. Next on my list is Gabi Bashana. Now, hers is one of the most talked about costumes, and this was made by Ken Batino. And this represents Viva la Virgen from the Padulong Festival. Now, this is a specific festival in Samar. I think that this was tastefully done. I think we can all agree that the bottom part just seemed really disconnected, and I also feel like she took more time in trying not to topple down and trying to walk towards the middle of the stage. But the part of the costume that mattered, which was from the waist up, from the frame, I thought that they were really successful with that. Now, I've told you this story quite a number of times, and I just want to, put it out there that this was conceptualized because of Tita B's involvement. She submitted a peg. I don't know if she submitted this willingly or if she was asked to, give suggestions on Gabby's national costume, and she submitted this festival that took place in Japan. Apparently, this was a festival in Japan wherein people would dress up and would make themselves up as famous paintings like the Mona Lisa, Van Gogh's self-portrait, and the girl with the pearl earrings. Tita B thought that this was a really fun concept, that they could try this and maybe pull from Filipino art. And that's why initially the idea was to do a frame with Fernando Amorsolo's Palay Maiden as portrayed by Gabi. So when we saw the photos, when we saw everything, it was a literal depiction of Mama Mary. Now, of course, this was different from the peg that was submitted by Tita B, but the whole idea was there, and I'm just really glad that it was executed nicely. Although I'm not oblivious to the fact, of course, that she might get bashed for it, that she might get a lot of flack from being too literal, but it's already there, and it seems that they're really happy with the results, and a lot of people responded to it, and it's a conversation piece, it's a conversation performance. So I don't know, I just thought that Gabi looked the part, and yeah, I know that a lot of people will raise their eyebrows, but yeah, she does look like Mama Mary in the traditional sense. So speaking of Mama Mary, we have an abundance of religious imagery at this national costume show, and one of my uber favorites, because I'm a maximalist at heart, I will be giving this to Kaya Moreno, and her Amor a la Virgen de Peña Francia ensemble was made by Candy Segovia. Now, this was intricate. This had all the stamp of Galliano and McQueen and Dolce and Gabbana and everything I liked about yeah, national costumes and just the whole couture side of making these garments. And I was just really happy with the depiction, because this was a more accurate depiction of the icon of Peña Francia. Now, the colors are inspired by the Lady of Peña Francia as the morning star, and I think what really ties everything together is just how visual it was, how artistic and how accurate everything was. If I do a side to side of the Lady of Peña Francia and the final product, it's very similar to each other. And she carried an exquisite rosary, and there just seems to be a focus on metal and beadwork, and even her rosary, everything was just so handcrafted and everything was just so exquisitely made. I only have good things to say about this national costume. Another one of my favorite is, of course, Quezon City's Patricia Gold. Now, I really love my number 14 pick because she was the one who wore a mariposa costume. This was made by Erin Montoya. Now, I love this because this one screamed couture for me, and I have photos to show you of the works of Iris Van Harpen. We have Alexander McQueen. We have Thierry Mugler. I think I have a Moschino as well. It's so easy to try and redo or like make a butterfly inspired gown or a butterfly inspired dress. But when you have fabric manipulation and then you have construction and engineering and end up with something voluminous but then gives the wearer shape and a really tiny waist, and I think that they scored a jackpot. Pick, I will be giving this to Harleen Nicole Budol. I thought that she really was a show person. She knew how to work the crowd and she commanded the stage and she knew what was expected of her. And her large personality was just as large as the Gigantes figure at her back. And I like that the crowd was just really happy to see her and that she was feeding off the energy of the crowd. Now, this was made by Patrick Isarena. I think that this is a more successful effort of Patrick, who we knew also did Alison Black's costume at Miss Supranational. Unfortunately, that wasn't as well received. But Harleen Budol's national costume, which consists of three parts. The first part was the Gigantes figure in the image of Kat, because they said that Kat was the one who really introduced the Gigantes festival to a larger pageant audience. And then she also had a train which was painted on by the artisans of Angono Rizal. So I think that that aspect of her national costume really had to be there as a representative of Angono. And of course, because she's been known as Hipon Girl, her bodysuit in that blingy orange and gold crystal embellished creation is just really a great representation of the moniker that has been bestowed upon her. My number two pick is, of course, the revelation herself. She is Cyril Payumo. Now, her ensemble was made by Nick Sabinian, and it's called Nunu Magantsi. Now, what's interesting about her costume is that it's constructed by our brothers and sisters from Porac, Pampanga, particularly from the Aita group of Magansi. And apparently, all of the materials were made from beads and dried seeds that were primarily wrapped around the body as part of the costume. And she had a bamboo element as well. It's used for making this sound. And she also has a form-fitting she has a form-fitting dress that was just fully beaded. You kind of get the idea that there's like so much love put into that, and there was a lot of involvement, especially with the hand painted part of the members of the Aita community. And I think what really brought the house down wasn't really her costume. It was the way she manipulated her costume. It was the way she moved. It was a presentation. And if I may say, if CJ Copiasa really brought the house down from the press presentation, Cyril Puyumo did the same thing at the National Costume Show. We have to pay tribute, of course, to the amazing Tikbalang costume, my number one pick. And this was, of course, worn by Graciela Liman and was made by the amazing Paulo Ballesteros. This Tikbalang national costume is fashioned with intertwined branches of the balete tree and forms the horse head and butterfly sleeves that hugs the body down to its hooves as sheets of translucent ghostly white fabric are decoratively draped as its beguiling mane and tail that dance with the wind as it lurks in the shadows. The body is adorned with lace and white pearls and rhinestones, flickering like diamonds that will captivate everyone who may glimpse at this elusive mythical creature. Ethereal and sublime it may be wary of its eyes, blood red, glowing in the darkness of night. Gaze and marvel in awe and forever be lost in enchantment. I mean, weren't you enchanted by that write up? I mean, even if they did not get to execute this, I would be sold with the story. And boy, am I so happy that they executed this beautifully. It was stunning in scale, it was impressive in height, and it was just magnificent to watch because the movements were so horse like, the proportions were right, and just the wow factor was there. I think for me, the tikbalang, or the phantom tikbalang, I call it, national costume, went straight to the top because I have been asking the pageant gods for Philippine mythology to be depicted on the international arena, to really look at the Philippine horror stories, not just the mythical creatures that are the ones that we get to learn in school. But all in all, I thought that her national costume was just so fantastic. It's not something that we've seen before. I think that we saw a little bit of a resemblance to Ning Sofida's white elephant costume, but in terms of scale, in terms of how beautifully constructed and engineered this was, I think that this was just really superb.